Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate, with host Glenn Sutherland.
Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Welcome to another episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week my guest is Chris Rood. Chris, for people who don't know who you are, let's do a bit of an intro, maybe a little bit of story, give a bit of background to who you are, and then we'll jump into it.
Well, I won't bore people with the long version. I'll just give you the 50,000-foot view. Entrepreneur, just like all the rest of you knuckleheads that probably watch this. Yeah. Hard-headed, very driven, stubborn, unemployable.
I got the feel of that. I met Chris down in Cape Coral when I was down there. I'm actually doing a bunch of interviews with the people who were down there. It was such an elite group that I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get them all on, right? So you get into those masterminds and there's you can feed off each other. It's
100%.
It's great.
Yeah. No, I mean, iron sharpens iron. I mean, that's I go to masterminds probably, not kidding you, 1 or 2 a month sometimes, and the amount of knowledge I pick up, it's not like major things, like it's 1 or 2 like little nuggets that I just don't know, right? And like I implement in my company and it increases revenue or might help make a couple 100,000 more just from those simple tidbit nuggets of stuff you just don't know.
Yep, totally get it. And sometimes it's even a refresher, stuff I do know and I just wasn't thinking about it.
Yep.
Chris, so I follow you on Facebook and I'm just seeing a lot of your posts, right? And you know, I feel like a lot of people's strategy is changing now. What are you doing now and why? Like, I know that there's a lot of, raising interest rates, a lot of inflation. There's a lot of stuff back in here. And I know everyone's kind of repositioning a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking some chips off the table for sure. I got a pretty large portfolio of mobile home parks, Airbnbs, not very many single family homes. I own some apartment complexes too.
Yeah.
We're taking some chips off the table. Anything that we don't want to keep the next 5-10 years, that's maybe older product or stuff I just, like I said, wouldn't plan on keeping the next 5-10 years with selling. Because I mean, never in world history have we had so much. And I think it's worse than the 70s during the Nixon era, right? And with that said, we may not ever see another opportunity like this in our lifetimes, right? I mean, the last time there was an opportunity like this, we had such soaring inflation, I wasn't even born. I was born in 81. I think when this happened, it was the late 70s when Nixon was in. So, or maybe it was early 70s. Yeah, it was early 70s. It was 71. I'm sorry. Yeah. But so if you can study history and cycles and mix it in with philosophy, especially, business philosophy, you can kind of predict the future as a business owner, right? Everything comes in cycles. Everything's pretty damn well predictable. If you look at it, it comes in, different forms and fashions. It may not be the exact same thing, but it all rhymes, right?
Yep.
So I think we're in for, major pullback here soon. So I'm taking chips off the table, stacking the cash for the crash, waiting for opportunities and seeing where's the trends right now. And I think the trends are going to be affordable housing and RV parks, right? A lot of people are getting poorer because of inflation. So they're downgrading their standard of living. And then your baby boomers, which are 10,000 a day retiring, a lot of them are selling off their nice brick on slab house and buying RVs and going RV for the rest of their life. And I've at firsthand seen this because I own an RV, and every freaking RV park in the country is full, and it's been like that for about 1.5 years, 2 years now, and then they're booked out 1 year, 2 years in advance. So that's a good trend, and that's kind of where we're headed with mobile home parks, RV parks. In addition to that, we are looking at acquiring HVAC companies right now as a bolt-on business to our real estate company because it's symbiotic to what we already do. I spend 6 figures a year in HVAC services with all the properties we have. So we want a business that's going to help serve the overall real estate company that is recession proof to what's coming. Because let's be real. People are going to pay their AC and heat bill before they pay their mortgage if shit got really bad.
Yeah, especially in the South.
Especially where I live, man. It's 105 degrees in South Louisiana right now. As soon as you step outside, within 2 minutes, you're sweating. So
you're moving stuff to cash, and you said 5 to 10 years, anything you're not going to keep that long, right? Is that just strictly because of the cash, or does any of it play into like, even I experienced during COVID times that they weren't doing refinances, banks might tighten up. Is that part of the equation, that you might just get stuck with not being able to refinance these properties
That
or extend your
yeah,
financing?
that's definitely a part of it, because the banks will get nervous and seize up like they did in 2008 and like they did in 2020, right? So you want to have some cash on the sideline, and people say, well, cash is trash and all that. I mean, look, if you got hundreds of millions of dollars in cash, it might be trash to you because you got an abundance of it. But the average millionaire like me and you, it doesn't have $100 million in a checking account, right?
No.
So to have, say 2 to 5 million or 5 to 10 million liquidity in your checking account, and you're losing, say 7 to 8% through inflation, which I think is more than that. It's more like freaking 15, 20%. I think that's all in propaganda and lies. That's just the cost of opportunity, right? To have liquidity, to have dry powder. But when the market pulls back, yeah, the 7 to say 15% in inflation that you're losing, to having liquidity in cash, you'll make up for in a deflationary period, which will be coming probably soon.
Yeah.
And it'll reverse, and your dollar will be worth way more, and it'll be stretched and go a lot further. So you have to look at it both ways. It's the cost of opportunity to have cash on the sidelines, because I mean, if things seize up, market pulls back, consumer confidence slows down, goods and services are not transmitted in the economy like they used to, and you ain't got no cash because all you did was invest every penny into real estate, dude, you're gonna be in a bind. You're gonna be up shit creek without a paddle, like they say here in the South.
Yeah. So the hard part I have with it, right, is, I'm an investor, right? I want my money working, right? So I pull my chips off the table. It's not working, and that's actually losing money, like you said, with the inflation and everything. So, and I do agree that I pulled some money back too, and it actually even helps me sleep at night, because if stuff happens, or some of my rehabs that are on the go can't go the way they need them to go, I have the money to bail them out. But how much cash, like, is there like a way to figure this out, or just do as much as you can?
I would say 20 to 30% of your net worth.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty, be well balanced. I mean, if you got 20%, 30% of your net, like we're selling 4 parks right now. I own 15 parks, right?
Right.
So I'm selling 4 of those parks.
Didn't you just say that like the mobile home parks are going to be full though? So why sell the parks?
Because I don't plan on keeping those parks.
Right.
I don't plan, and they're older parks, right? And the market's so hot right now with buyers, they'll freaking buy anything, right? Just because they watched the real estate seminar and they want to be a real estate investor, they'll just like go in there and pay the top price. I mean, I got a park that I'm selling right now in Bonifay, Florida. I paid $575 on owner finance. I'm selling for 1.25 right now. I've only owned it 3 years, right? And I haven't hardly put any money into it. I think we might have well, honestly, I didn't put any of my own money into it besides the down payment. We used the cash flow to rehab it over the past 2.5 years. I hadn't really pulled any money out, but it's doubled in value, double and a quarter in value, right? So, but it's an older park. The trailers are from the 80s. It's not the best area, but it's right off of I-10 in Florida. It's not that terrible area, but I don't see myself wanting to keep that park in 10 years. It's going to require it's going to require $250,000, $300,000 worth of work. So if I can make, $650,000, $700,000 right now, the value of the $700,000 today is worth more than trying to make $700,000 in cash flow in the next 10 years, with me knowing I'm gonna have to probably put $250,000 into it. When I can get a better opportunity, when the market pulls back from somebody that overpaid for something, or somebody that's made a bad decision, I can redeploy that into a better, newer asset. You got to understand, like, you got to look at the age of everything too. I forget guy. Everybody knows who Grant Cardone is. I was just at the 10X Growth Con listening to Grant. He said something. He said it 3 or 4 times, and it really stuck out. I never heard him say that before. He said every asset eventually becomes a liability. I had to think about that for 2 days straight until he kept repeating himself, and it finally clicked. Everybody thinks they're buying assets. No, you're buying an asset now that will eventually become a liability. So you need to make sure the cycle of that asset class is in a particular time period where it's still going to be an asset and not be a liability soon because it's old, wore out, and is going to need a lot of capital injected into it to make it an asset again. So if you're holding on to an asset that's old, in my case, this park, this from the 80s, I know that it's going to be probably a liability. And I'm not going to probably be able to make any money on it for about another 4 or 5 years because I know I need to inject another $250,000 into it. Well, is it really an asset to me right now if I'm having to put $250,000 into it over the next 2 to 4 years?
No, man, probably not.
Probably not.
It's going to turn into a pain, right?
It's going to turn into a pain. But if I can cash out
Yeah.
and make 650, 700,000 now to somebody that's willing to buy it, when would I get another opportunity to sell it at the top of the market cycle like I am now? There may not be another opportunity in my lifetime based off of cycles.
Just curious about that. Like when you're structuring that, would you move that seller financing you got when you bought it onto just continue it? You just cancel them to find their own financing?
Yeah. I'll cash out my first position lien holder that did owner finance with me, and then keep the profit. And probably I may even try to look at doing a 1031 exchange if I can. I doubt I'll do a 1031 exchange. I'd rather just pay the taxes, which I usually don't have to pay too much in taxes because we're always buying so much property. So we have a lot of depreciation. So as real estate investors, that's a beautiful thing. And we can make a bunch of money in real estate and not really, we could either 1031 exchange or we just keep the cash. As long as we keep buying more real estate, the depreciation offsets our capital gains.
Interesting. Yeah. And so you also, one thing you touched on way back there was the buying HVAC companies. So you are still buying, but it's just maybe not going into the same asset class, right?
Yep.
And is it because it's a demand? Like even for me, like I wanted to get a plumber and they told me like, it's going to be like 8 weeks, right? Like they're that backed up here in Canada anyway, right? So like for cosmetic stuff, this isn't like an emergency, right? So is that the way to go? Like, because I honestly love to have my money working, right? But I do understand keeping money on the side too. So that's where you go? Is trades or is it other things as well?
No, I think service-based business is the way of the future. I mean, because look at labor, the shortages of labor, people are getting paid not to work. So that's driving up the demand for labor and service-based business because frankly, nobody wants to work.
Nobody wants to work. No.
So if you've got a good, solid service company with good employees and you're paying them well, that's going to be super valuable to the economy because you have a business that shows up and does what it says and says what it does. And you can get charged a premium for it. And it's symbiotic to what you're already doing. It feeds off of what you're already doing. I mean, you already got to call a plumber. You already got to call an HVAC company. So why not keep that in-house? You'll save some money by not having to outsource it. Plus, you can push out to other people in your network. Because, I mean, most real estate investors know a lot of other real estate investors, and we can get them all to use our service.
Yeah. I love the idea of it, but I have no idea how you price an HVAC company. I wouldn't even know if I'm getting ripped off.
No, I mean, you can Google it, right? I mean, HVAC companies are selling like 3 to 5% EBITDA on average. I wouldn't pay no more than probably 3 because I'm an investor and greedy, and if I can't steal it, I ain't buying it kind of guy, right? But they got hedge funds going out there buying HVAC companies at a 7 times EBITDA right now, which is ridiculous because they're looking to place cash, right? There's so much cash and liquidity in the marketplace, but you just got to be smart, right? You got to be super smart right now. Like things are kind of wild and crazy. You better figure out, where you can make money. It's getting harder and harder to make money. And I think for us as investors, if you want to be a true investor, you got to have a predator and shark mentality. If you can't steal it, don't buy it right now. You're at the top of the market cycle. Do not pay full price for anything right now unless it's a super, super premium property in a premium area that the trends are showing you what you pay now, it would definitely be worth more in the future because there's too much demand for the area. That would be the only way I'd pay a full price or premium for a property right now is if I know it's going to trend up no matter what the economy does because there's too much demand for that area. Case in point, Florida, right? Certain parts of Florida, you could pay full price, right? I thought I was paying full price for my beach house 4.5 years ago. Now it's worth double and a half what I paid for it. I was willing to pay full price at the time because I love the area. I vacation there, and the demand for vacation rentals in that area was so strong. I didn't care, right? And I was right. But it's all about trends, demographics, and you got two types of investors. You got the value investor, and then you got the trend investor. I'd call somebody like a value investor, like somebody like Warren Buffett, right? He's sitting on $170 billion worth of capital right now, right? But then you got other people like Grant Cardone that tells you cash is trash. Don't sit on cash, right? So like, who do you listen to, right? Are they both right or are they both wrong? I think they're both right and they're both wrong. Right? There's just two different strategies. One's a value investor. One's a trend investor. Grant Cardone's a trend investor. He invests in areas that he knows for a fact going to go up because there's too much demand. He only buys apartments. I mean, he owns a ton of apartments in the best parts of Florida where everybody's moving. So is he wrong or is he right? I mean, yeah, Warren Buffett say he's probably wrong. I think they're both right and they're both wrong. But you look at Warren Buffett, he's sitting on $170 billion worth of cash. Is he getting eaten up with inflation right now? Sure, he's probably losing.
Yeah.
He's probably losing 4 or 5 billion, maybe $10 billion in value to his money that he's sitting on, because he's sitting on $144 billion. So if we do have, say, 8 to 10, which we have more, that's probably like 15 to 20% inflation. Dude, he might be losing 25, $30 billion in purchasing power every year, holding on to that. But when the market pulls back, if you got $144 billion in liquidity, you might better turn that into $1 trillion, because things are going to pull back and everything's going to be on sale. And that's what he's waiting for. So he's a value investor. And then you got trend investors. I think you need to be a combination of both. And that's what I look at. I like to just study people and see, like, what are they doing? What is their strategic advantage? And why do they do it? And once you know that, you can really, really hone in your strategy and figure out what works for you.
Yep. No, I agree. Even with everything, strategies, everything. I don't like to be doing one thing completely. I want to be like, for me, I'm like flipping, I'm doing burrs, lease options, just lots of different things, diversify yourself. You talked about Florida. I know when we were talking down in Florida, you're also talking about, you did some short terms in Alabama. I didn't hear you selling the short term ones. If there's a recession or anything, do you think that'll affect vacancy rates, or do you think the Airbnbs will still keep producing?
I think Airbnbs will still keep producing because COVID has created this environment where nobody wants to leave the country.
Yep.
So Airbnbs on the water are crushing it right now. I know. I mean, I own 4 of them. Every one of them are crushing it, double in rents what they used to do. Right. I think it's a combination of people not wanting to go out of the country.
Yep.
And now I say Airbnbs, not condos, houses. So that's another strategic advantage. Houses are going to be more desired because you got your personal space. You don't have to share any space. When you have condos, you got to rub elbows with a bunch of other people. Or if you're in a hotel, you're rubbing elbows with a bunch of other families.
Houses on the water. Gotcha.
Houses on the water have a strategic advantage over every other asset class in Airbnbs because you have your own space.
When I started investing in the US, I did it by myself and had to go through the growing pains of doing that. GlennSutherland.com/coaching. A 12-week coaching program done 1 hour per week over Zoom from the comfort of your own home. Classes are kept to 5 people to be able to answer everyone's questions. Shortcut the process. Make fewer mistakes. Curriculum available at GlennSutherland.com/coaching.
It just made me think about Cape Coral again, with like that whole city's on water, right? Like, compared to like most places, you're just going for ocean or some lakes or whatever.
That's a great place to invest. As a matter of fact, we just started investing out there. We just started sending out a bunch of direct mail out there to start buying deals. I mean, just got to be strategic, guys. Like, just look at where can you cheat legally, morally, and ethically? Business is war. If you hadn't figured that out yet, you don't need to be in business. I think we talked about a lot. I think I'm assuming you have a lot of Canadian people that watch this.
Yeah, probably 80%. Yeah,
80%. My advice to you Canadians is that you better figure out a second strategy besides Canada. That freaking let's just call it like I see it. That freaking low life of a communist dictator Trudeau y'all have over there is literally destroying the entrepreneurial spirit and destroying productivity and doing whatever he can to usurp power and destroy your freedom and rights. So with that said, I think what you're doing as a Canadian investor investing in the US gives so much value to you Canadians, because the US is the last beacon of hope and freedom. I would figure out, especially if you're an entrepreneur. I mean, if you're drinking the communist Kool-Aid, then I don't have any hope for you. You just need to keep drinking that and just thinking everything's going to be great and your life's going to have a great socialist utopian lifestyle, which you'll be surprised what's going to happen probably in the next 2 to 4 years. You'll wake up to no rights and getting a COVID jab every other month and living in a prison, right? Called your job. I would follow the Canadian investor and start investing in the US. I'd get a dual citizenship and I would become an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is what's going to save you. So sorry about that. My dogs are playing.
No problem. I got a dog too. Waiting for my dog to get fired up.
So I hope I wasn't too politically.
I think that there's more and more people realizing the advantages, right? We went to that conference and there were several, I won't do name drops, but there are several guys that were known in Canada for being like the guys doing like, the 200 flips a year, right? And they're down there now. They're buying in Florida. They're buying all over the place. Everyone has their different stick where they like, right? But it's a trend, right? Even you just start watching. If you're Canadian listening to this, listen to the other podcasts from Canada, and you'll hear it. There is a lot of people going to invest in the United States, and there's a lot of advantages. And I know Chris knows the same thing. And going to the US as a general isn't a good enough answer. There are states that work much better than other states. There's certain places you don't want to be doing your rentals for tenants or tenancy rentals, because they're just you're not going to be able to get these people out. But the same thing in Canada, right? You can't get the people out if they don't stop paying as well. But so pick a place that makes sense still. You're going to go down there.
Red states, let's just call it what it is. Red fiscally conservative red states. Anything in the South would do good. I mean, there's a few states in the North. I just bought 2 mobile home parks in Indiana, but it's a red state. It's more fiscally and socially conservative. I would not be buying in New York or California. I mean, first of all, it doesn't make any sense because everything's overpriced and can't even make anything cash flow. And you have no rights as a landlord. All the rights go to the tenants, and they'll bankrupt you in a heartbeat. And they don't care and they won't think twice about it. So you got to be smart, guys. We live in some politically unstable times. History tells us that we're due for some politically unstable times because we've had such good times for the past 60 to 50 years, right? So that's just what the cycles tell us, not because I say so, because just study history. I think we're in for some turbulent times. You better be very intentional and think about what you do before you do it, and start thinking about the second and third order consequences of every decision you make. And I think you'll be made whole if you do. You better think 5-10 years out.
I think you wrapped it up perfectly there. Chris, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to find you?
I'd follow me on Facebook at Chris Rood Entrepreneur, my business page. I do a lot of free content, Facebook's live, talking stuff like this. Instagram, I do a lot of content on Instagram at Real Estate Rood. I have a free book you can pick up if you want a free source on how to find deals, thesourceofthedeal.com free ebook. And if you want to maybe get hooked up, and just DM me on Facebook or social media. My personal Facebook page is full. Just press the like button. And I got a website. You can go to chrisrood.com or just inbox me. Maybe come out to one of my masterminds, get some coaching. I might even have you come speak in one of my masterminds as a Canadian and trying to invest in the US.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't been down to Louisiana since February. But awesome. you're more mid Louisiana. But yeah. Anyway, Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, dude. It was a good time.